on topic Implications of COVID-19 pandemic on Indian economy and way forward, organized by the Atpadi Education Society's Shrimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Mahavidyalaya, Department of Economics and IQAC. As we all know, the entire world is suffering from this pandemic of COVID 19, where India is facing this problem, especially from the month of March April. As a result of this, every single aspect of the country and the society is facing its adverse effect, where the education and economical aspect is no different. As a result, various elements of economy as well as the students are concerned about this situation and are thinking about the way to find a solution for this. Hence, as the educational institutes have been closed and yet we have think about the way forward, our college has arranged this webinar keeping in mind the need not to know the effects of this pandemic on our economy and to find a way to tackle with this problem. Now, in this webinar, I welcome Honorable Mr. Amarsinha Deshmukh, Chairman at Atpadi Education Society, Honorable Dr. Vijay Londe sir, Acting Principal, Srimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Mahavidyalaya Atpadi. Now, I welcome today's resource person, Professor Dr. M.S. Deshmukh sir from Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Also, I welcome all professors, economics and students and everyone who are connected with us online for this webinar. Now, I request Honorable Dr. Vijay Londe sir, Acting Principal, Srimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Mahavidyalaya Atpadi, to express welcome and keynote address to today's webinar. Londe sir.
Hello, good morning. It gives me a great pleasure that today the Atpadi Education Society, Srimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Mahavidyalaya, Department of Economics and our IQAC department jointly organized one-day national webinar on topic implications of COVID-19 pandemic on Indian economy and way forward. We have a great, very eminent personality, Professor Dr. Mahadev Deshmukh, Professor, Department of Economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. I heartily welcome to Dr. Mahadev Deshmukh and all participants which are joined with us from various 18 states, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Assam, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir. So today's one-day national webinar is very important and essential nowadays because we are all suffering very crucial condition of COVID-19. So this subject is very important for that purpose. I thankful to our technical team. They are very grateful to their jobs. Dr. Deepak Rajmani, chairman of this committee. Dr. Shivaji Vibhote, coordinator of IQAC. Dr. Rutuja Kulkarni, HOD of Economics Department. Professor Hanman Samant from Economics Department. Dr. Dhananjay Lohar, who is working as a technical team member. Professor Sandeep Vibhote, Yuvraj Jadhav, and all organizing committee. They are doing well for organizing this one-day national webinar. The Atpadi Education Society was established in 1953, and Shrimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Mahavidyalaya was established in 1969 June. Last year we celebrated our golden jubilee year, and our college is working in rural area. Our very grateful support we have from our chairman, Honorable Amarsiya Deshmukh, who is always supporting us. So today's webinar is very important for us. I hope this webinar is useful for all the participants, students, everybody. Once again, I welcome to all of you and best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I request Professor H.S. Sawant, sir, to introduce the resource person of this webinar.
Thank you, madam. You have given me an opportunity to introduce eminent person in economics, Dr. M.S. Deshmukh, sir, who is working as a professor in Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Sir has published 38 articles in international journal, 19 research papers published in conference proceeding. Sir has written 19 books. Sir has Dr. Deshmukh sir's research gate score is 1.63 and citation index is 57. Sir has working on many committees. Sir is also member of Board of Studies, Sadhguru Gadge Maharaj College, Karad, and RRC committee member, Mumbai University, Mumbai. Sir has got many honors and awards, such as Dr. Dhananjay Rao Gadge Award 2016 and Radhakrishna Gold Medal Award, New Delhi 2016. Sir has completed major and minor research projects which are funded by UGC and Government of Maharashtra. So we got such an eminent person who is going to talk on implication of COVID-19 pandemic on Indian economy and way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As I know that everyone among us is eagerly waiting to listen to Dr. M.S. Deshmukh, sir. So, without any further delay, I request Dr. M.S. Deshmukh, sir, to guide our path with your words. M.S. Deshmukh, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the brief introduction. Am I audible? Yeah. At the outset, I am very much grateful for the management of Atpadi Education Society, Chairman Honorable Amarsiya Deshmukh, Principal of the Shrimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Mahavidyalaya, Dr. Vijay Londe, Head of the Department of the Economics, Dr. Rutuja Kulkarni, her colleague, Professor Hanumant Sawant, and organizing committee members of the Shrimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Atpadi Education Society, Mahavidyalaya Atpadi Education Society. Today, I have been asked to talk about a very important topic. The title as Implications of COVID-19 Pandemic and a Way Forward. In this context, once we talk about the COVID-19 pandemic situation, as we know that this particular problem, am I getting permission to share this screen? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. My screen is disabled. Please allow me to share the screen. PPT screen share करला permission द्या. Yes, screen sharing is not allowed. Please allow me to share the screen.
Okay, just take up. Yeah. Oh, you
Host disable participant screen sharing. Yeah.
Screen sharing.
Yes. Yeah. Now, as I said, that the topic of the today's webinar is implications of the COVID-19 pandemic on Indian economy and the way forward. In this context, once we talk about how the Indian economy, which has been affected since this particular problem, which has been started, not only in our country, but the phenomena is of a global phenomena. But in the presentation, we will cover more about our Indian economy, and in comparison, we'll have certain examples of the other countries in the globe. As we know that, and particularly the learners of the economics, they know that the India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, next to the China. But since recent few months or the few years, as we know that the economic growth has been steadily decelerated. I mean, slowly and gradually, the growth has started to decline. Once upon a time, our growth rate was very close to the double digit, but slowly and gradually, it has gone down to 7%, 8%, 6%, etc. So this kind of deceleration, this kind of decrease in the economic growth is not a good symptom for any developing economy. So what is important is the economy has to put its efforts to improve it. Before COVID-19 pandemic or the breakdown, our situation was the normal situation. Our day-to-day life was also the normal life. The movement in India, which were taking place across the states, even across the countries. But after the COVID-19 situation, and particularly in India, after 22nd March and after 25th March, a lockdown has been announced by the central government and the various states of our economy. And as a result of that, we all are locked in a particular area. We are not allowed to move from one place to another place because of this pandemic situation. And what happened because of this? There is a drastically various implications which has been taken place on the various kind of schemes which has been launched to fight against the instability of the economy that is happening across, and the central government and state government is working on it since last 3 to 4 months. Economy was already reeling under the huge distress. Earlier, we had the changes, a great change in the policy, what we title as a demonetization. That was one shock to the economy. Then we had been particular problems related to introduction of the GST and its implementation of the goods and service tax. That was also the very, very big problem for the economy. And subsequently, now we are facing the problem, and that is the biggest global problem, what you call as entitled as COVID-19. We all are in this kind of aggregate crisis. Though these are the various crises, but everybody is having a positive approach that this kind of fight in a few days or few months or at the end of this particular year, we are definitely going to win. With this positive approach, we all are living our regular life. India rightly went in for early lockdown. As we know that around 25th March, the lockdown was announced. That time the cases within our economy were very, very less, but still we have taken a decision to lock our economy. And thereby what has happened, subsequently, this kind of situation which has led to the slowing of the economic activity. And now we are talking about how one can recover it. If you go back how the lockdown process which has been started within our economy, we know that 25th March was the first date where it was announced. Earlier, there was a Janata curfew, what we call as 22nd March, it was on that. And the livelihood of our rural economy, including the urban economy, which was got affected once it has been announced. Then subsequently on 14th April, the lockdown was extended till May 3rd. And later on 4th May onwards, that was further extended on 17th May. And subsequently, it was on 31st May, and then in 30th June, and so on and so forth. And from 1st July onwards, the unlock process which has been started within the lockdown, and that is what government of Maharashtra, I mean the state government, our economy, which has been extended till 31st July. For that, what we call as Punascha beginning. By knowing all this, if you take some of the studies which have been done by the certain institutions, what we call as MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is very famous, and they have given some of the records related to COVID-19 cases, and they say that per day in India, there may be the spike, and that will be somewhere around 2.87 lakh, and that is of the early 2021. Till the vaccine or the treatment isn't developed soon. So this is a very what we can call as a red signal for our country that if to such extent, if the things goes, then it will become having a panic situation. So one has to control, and to get it control, one of the solution what we call as a lockdown. But lockdown from an economy point of view is not a solution. It is a temporary phenomena where one can work out what other remedial measures can be done. And that's what in a few hours we are going to discuss on that. If you see that India is one of the most affected country, we know that if you take the today's trend, then we know that the first is of USA, second one is the Brazil, and third is of our India, where somewhere around 10 lakh people are affected because of this COVID-19 case. Affected in the sense the positive cases I am referring. And as a result of that, there is uncertainty which has been created within the economy in all the states of our economy, geographical boundary of our country, what we call as Bharat. COVID disruption has done to the Indian economic agent. And what are that economic agents? We know that business is nothing but firm is one agent. Another one is a buyer or the purchaser, what we call as the consumers. The producer and the consumers, both are sufferers under this lockdown position. Never in the history such kind of large-scale lockdown has been recorded simultaneously. This extended lockdown has a severe impact on the world economy. So this is what we are hearing in the history of the world, that such lockdown which has been placed. Moving further, the COVID-19 pandemic will shut down large part of the world economy for at least a few months more. We are expecting that, and we know that from the various newspapers and the various agencies and through the various medias that since 15th August, maybe probably this kind of vaccine process which will be going to be started. That's what we're expecting it, but few more months we are going to under this kind of problem. If we talk about FAO, is the Food and Agriculture Organization, what they have warned to the world or the globe that food crisis, if countries do not protect vulnerable people from hunger and malnourishment and deadlock food supply chains. It means that if the sufficient quantum of food and particularly cereals and pulses, what is required for day-to-day consumption, if it is not provided to the vulnerable community, then this kind of problem which will occur and what we call as global hunger or malnourishment. So this is what the FAO has been warned. United Nations has also warned to the globe, including India, that this crisis is going to trigger and food shortage around the world which will take place. We very much thankful to the farmers who are working in the field during the lockdown period also, and they are taking the care of our food basket. And as a result of that, the sufficient quantity of food in the coming month, we will get it. That is what very important for us. And we have to place on the record that for the farming community who is working and feeding to the entire country as well as the world also, if at all we are exporting. But even was that this kind of food shortage, which will be definitely going to take place all over the world. COVID-19 crisis already made vulnerable by food insecurity and the malnourishment. We know that there are many people which are moving from one place to another place. There are many people which has been quarantined and they are talking about the sufficient quantity of food, particularly the quality of the food and the food in time they are not getting. And that's why this is what one of the problem which may lead to food insecurity also. The world is sliding rapidly towards recession. We know that, as I said earlier, growth was very close to the double digit, but slowly and gradually the growth rate of the economy which has gone down, and that may lead to the recession. We know that during 2008 also, not only the India was having a slight problem, but the world was under the recession, and particularly the America was very affected severely because of that recession. So the chances are there, if the things moves in the same manner, then economy will go under the recession. What are our assumptions for this into pandemic? So we assume that the temporary drop in amount of hours work per worker. Per worker, if you take into account 8 hours if he's working, definitely the number of hours work which will go down because of this pandemic. People in areas subject to quarantine, after all, will have a limited possibility of work. Those who are in quarantine, they are not going to work. That is also assumption. Adverse effect on private consumption as the virus outbreak will negatively affect consumers' behavior, because we know that the consumption is of luxurious consumption and the essential consumption or the comfortable commodity consumption. We cannot avoid our essential consumption, but other type of consumption, definitely that is going to affect. Purchases will postpone on or even cancel. Those companies, those firms, those industries who are manufacturing the commodity, their orders are getting cancelled or their orders are getting postponed because of this pandemic situation. Cross-border trade will become a cumbersome and more expensive. We know that either the trade between the states or trade across the countries or the global trade, because of this kind of problem that is affected. Relative decline in the export market due to problem with trade, because there are many commodities which are lying either in the farm or in the godowns or in the industry, because the export is banned, international trade is not taking place. Expect some permanent damage to the economy in terms of adverse productivity which will affect. We know that the labor productivity, land productivity, industrial productivity, productivity of each factor which contributing for the development of the economy is going to get affected. So there will be adverse impact on overall productivity. People will work overtime in second half of 2020 to deal with the backlog of this. So we know that if the things go smoothly, if the medicines comes out, if the vaccines takes place, then later period, the people will start working more. If they are working one shift, definitely they will go for another shift also. I mean, number of hours of the work, they may increase. That is what with positive approach, economy will begin once again. If you talk about some of the statistics about the India in the world, so we know that USA is one of the largest growing or the largest economy, and that's what since 1871. The size of the US economy is somewhere around $21.44 trillion till 2019. Our economy is also the largest, but that is the 5th largest economy in the world. And our economic, what we can call as a GDP, is around $2.94 trillion. So we know that the present government in an earlier tenure has announced that our economy should go till the $5 trillion economy. At present, we are 2.9. We have to move towards 5 trillion. It's the big jump required for Indian economy. That's why production of all the sectors is very important. IMF has made some kind of observation that the GDP of India by 2020 at current prices will be around $3,202 billion. India contributes 3.454% of total world's GDP, and India's share in the world population is around 17.5% in the world surface area. The fastest growing sector of our economy, we know that primary sector, secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. Within the tertiary sector, services, trade, hotel, transport, communication, finance, banking, insurance, real estate, social, personal services, all they are contributing, and their contribution in the GDP of India is 60%. So 40% is agriculture and industry, 60% is a service, and all these services are more important. Manufacturing sector contributes 15%, and other services like electricity, water supply, mining, quarrying, etc. is of somewhere 5%. Taken together, that will be what one call as 28%. Per capita income of our country, that's very important. At the current prices, that is around 1,34,226 rupees. Per capita income is nothing but income per head of our economy. Moving further, COVID-19 will have impact on what? As I said, service sector is more important since it is contributing 60%. And if that services are not working, are shut down, then definitely the contribution in GDP which will go down. And what are the services? We know a closing of cinema theaters, consumption is getting affected due to the job losses, widespread fear and panic now increasing among people. Overall confidence level of the consumer, we will also talk about confidence index subsequently, that has drastically gone down. Travel restrictions, both domestic as well as international, that is completely closed. Hotels are also not working. I mean, only the food deliveries are allowed, but lodging and hotels which are also not working. And if that is not, then talking about educational sector as such, our conferences, seminars, workshops, where we move from one place to another place to attend or to deliver the lecture, only on online mode and a particular place we are giving it. So that kind of mobility is also restricted. These are the things which are very important and which are affecting for the development of our economy. The factories and workplaces are also shut down because the government has given SOPs, and that SOPs, those who find it is a very stringent, these managers, these organizers, they are not starting their industries, either it may be small, medium, or maybe the micro industry. So that has also affected. Though they want to work it, though they want to start it, but the workers are not there because once the lockdown has been announced, and those workers which were from different states and they were working in a particular industry in other states, they have been migrated, gone back to their native places. So there is a shortage of manpower, shortage of workforce. That is also one of the pandemic problem. Many of them and their families went hungry. We know that most of the people which have been traveling, because buses were not working, trains were not working, but how they were moving from one place to the place, either they were walking on the road, they were taking the help of the cycles, what you call as the bicycles. And because of this kind of the food required for day-to-day consumption, they were not getting. So hunger was a major problem. With no work and no money, thousands of migrant workers seen walking on the bicycle, that's already I have explained. Many were arrested for violating the lockdown because we know that the Pandemic Act, which has been reinforced, is of 1896. And as a result of that, the power were given to the district collectors. And as a result of that, those who are violating this, the cases were imposed on that. So that is what most of the people were arrested because of this. Processed food companies, those companies which are producing or processing the agrarian product, maybe for example, juice manufacturing, maybe mango to mango juice, like that. So these factories which are not working, they have been closed. Then grocery shops are also allowed, but to the extent of certain time period. Modern retail represent only 2.4% of grocery retail in India and benefited from this short term, because we know the grocery shops where they are selling the essential commodities, only they are working, and that is what only getting the benefit under this. However, regulations limiting store operations as well as disruptions in logistics and the labor movement. Logistics means supply chain management, labor movement, mobility of the labor from one place to another place, from home place to the factory workplace. That is what also affected. And as a result of that, there is a low investment as well as low sales or the turnover. Private label branded products were introduced on their distribution ramp also. Moving further, what we are working out here is how much will be the cost our economy which will face because of this lockdown. Because if everything gets shut down or the economy gets shut down, either the fully or the partially. And as a result of shutdown, there will be the cost which the economy has to face, what that cost will be. These are the working out which will be done by the various agencies or the institutions. If we talk about the Acute Rating and Research Limited, what they have estimated, they said that lockdown will cost to the Indian economy to the extent of 4.64 billion US dollar. It means every day we are losing 35,000 crore rupees of income. Now, please remember, 35,000 crore rupees of income is what the India is losing on a day-to-day basis. How many days the lockdown period? If I consider the first 21 days, then the total cost of that lockdown is nothing but the total loss of gross domestic product of our economy, which was 98 billion US dollar. In our own currency, that is 7.5 lakh crores, which we have lost during first 21 days. Subsequently, I will come to how many days which we are moving. Then All India Motor Transport Congress, AIMTC, their Secretary General said that their losses are getting accumulated because trucks are not working. Only those trucks or lorries which are there who are carrying only the essential commodities, non-essential commodity trucks or the containers which are not working. And they said that how much will be the cost they have incurred for the first 15 days. Their amount is 35,200 crore rupees. Given on an average, rupees 2,200 will be the per day loss to the per truck. This is the minimum we are talking. 2,200 rupees is a per day per truck loss which the economy is having because of this transport bottlenecks. More than 90% of that trucks, and only 10% trucks are moving because of essential commodities. 90% trucks are set down or they are in lock position. So a loss will be of very much cumulative loss of that. Then talking about the National Real Estate Development Council, we know that real estate, which is very important for the generation of the employment point of view, though that is of construction workers, but the employment which gets created in that sector more, it is next to the textile industry. A body of retailers puts this loss in the sector, and that they have estimated that rupees 1 lakh crore is the loss of that real estate economy. Even that may be even more also. The Confederation of All India Traders, CAIT we call it, what they have estimated that the losses incurred by the retail trade of the country, I'm not talking about the wholesale or the other type of trade, I'm only talking about the retail trade, in the second half of March due to COVID-19 pandemic, which will be the massive, and that was around 30 billion US dollar. In Indian retail sector, what is the share, what is the component, what is the proportion? The proportion is of 70 million traders which are associated with this, maybe some small and medium or big type of traders. Employing, how much is the employment in that retail trade sector? 45 crore people which are getting employed in this Indian retail trade sector. And a monthly business of approximately 70 billion US dollar is of 30 days income, which the Indian retail sector is giving. This is the world's biggest lockdown. As I said initially, in the history of the world, we have not heard or what you can call as experience such kind of biggest lockdown. So the world is facing. And as a result of this, if you calculate this kind of entire loss of our Indian economy till the 30th of July, I have counted 110 days, till the 30th of July, per day, if the count is somewhere around 35,000 crores rupees, if you multiply with 110 days, then amount is somewhere around 38.50 lakh crores. As at the end of this month, our Indian economy is losing the gross domestic product to the extent of 38.5 lakh crores. That is the biggest loss to the economy. Moving further, some of the indicators, if you see that, because everybody is trying to recover the economy or the restart the economy, and India has started within the lockdown to unlock the first unlock process. And in that unlock process, some of the indicators, if you see what they were in the earlier month and what they are now, so to understand to what extent the recovery of economy which is taking place, to understand this kind of recovery, this chart and some kind of indicators which are very important. And for that, what we call as a stringency index. The stringency index takes into account the publicly available information of 17 indicators. This is a comprehensive indicator which have been considered into account. Of that 4 indicators, some of the indicators, for example, income support, other indicators, for example, health related, testing related, etc. So all the indicators I will not read here, but there are overall 17 indicators, and taking that into account, what we understand that in the month of the June, the index of this, what index we call it, a stringent index, which was 76.39. What is expected that it should cross to the 100, but which is of lesser, and it is somewhere around 76.39. If you see this trend, what we understand that this has become a flat, nothing but the increment which has not taken place after the April, May, June, or maybe in the month of July. So the stringent index value of these 17 indicators is of lesser, nothing but economy to that extent is not getting recovered. What was the unemployment rate? Because for any economy, what is more important for the livelihood? Employment and income in a pocket, which is very important. If the person is not getting income in a pocket, what we call as a disposable income, spendable income to purchase the commodity, some money is required. If that is not, then there will be some kind of difficulty for that family or the individual. This data, which is borrowed from the CMIE. CMIE means Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. This data, even the economic surveys which are using while preparing their own drafts. What they have estimated, this data is of very authentic data because the economic surveys are also referring this data. So they have estimated unemployment is to what extent which exists, or job loss, how much it was. 122 million people were displaced from the job market. So this is what the job lost amount, which is of 122 million. India's unemployment rate till the end of the June, it was 86%. In the month of the July, in the month of the May, it was somewhere around 28%. Nothing but once the lockdown has been announced, after the March, April and May, unemployment rate was more than 28%. Now, within the lockdown, unlock 1 has been started, and that's why some industries have started to function. That unemployment rate, which has gone down to 8.6%. So a reduction from 28% to 8.6%, which has taken place. This is a very good signal for our economy because to that extent, some people are getting job and their income for the livelihood. But what is happening in the July, it was 8.9. In the July also, that unemployment rate which has been increased. Why? Because some of the industries were started initially, but because of this spreading of this COVID-19, that industries has been closed and containment zone has been declared. If that has happened, definitely the workers has been placed out from the industry. That's why from 8.6, it has further gone up to 8.9. But remember, 28 is the very highest figure, 8.9, which is of the highest, but some extent which can give some positive result to the economy. If you go back and see the history, for example, we know that 1930, 1933, there were the Great Depression globally. That Great Depression was only because of the lack of demand. The learners of the economics know that that is what we call as the effective demand. And that time, the unemployment rate, which was very high to the extent of 30-31%. So to that extent, our unemployment rate of the economy, which has been moving because of this pandemic situation, what we call as COVID-19 situation. And that's why ILO is nothing but this is a labor organization, which has been also said that 25 million people which have been displaced because of this COVID-19 outbreak. Moving further, I'm talking about the unemployment rate or unemployment trend, the figures which has been announced, I said by earlier in the earlier slide. But if you move further and say that from 19th January, 2nd February till the 7th June, and if you see this kind of movement, see that before the March, the things were there, but subsequently this unemployment rate, rural as well as urban. Rural is a blue line, urban is of yellow kind of line, isn't it? So what we see that the last end part, if you see that where unemployment rate in rural is less, but urban is more. Now, what it indicates that in urban area, COVID-19 problem is having more crisis than the rural. I don't mean that in rural area, there is no problem. There is a problem, but comparison-wise, relatively, urban area, metropolitan cities, which are suffering a loss because of this crisis, not because of this crisis. Talking about another indicator of the stringent index, what we call as petrol and diesel consumption. We know that the transport depends upon this. And if you see that, we understand that there is a declining trend in the consumption or the use of the transport vehicles. I mean, the petrol and diesel consumption has gone down to the extent of 60% in the month of April. So this is the downside line, what you call as a bar graph towards down. We say 60% here. So April, end of the March, entire April and the beginning of the May, if you see that the consumption of diesel and petrol, which was very less. Going further for the banking sector, what you call as financial sector, where a loan deposit ratio, which is very important. Deposit where we can put on an account, loan where a needy can borrow from the bank. So that loan deposit ratio trend, which says that here loan deposit ratio is somewhere around 76.39%. What it says, if I deposit 100 rupees in a bank account, the bank is only delivering 76.4 rupees to the needy person in the form of loan. So that is of lesser. So here this amount is lesser. I mean, loan deposit ratio, which is of declining. So loan amount, which was, suppose, as I said, 100 rupees, that now is becoming 74.5 rupees. But talking about the non-performing assets, we know that if the person which has borrowed the money from the bank, maybe because of certain need of his own business, and if he's not in a position to pay it, he's not in a position to pay the installment, month-wise installment, though the Reserve Bank of India has announced that 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, some relaxation will be given on the basis of the consent of the customer of that bank. But non-performing assets of the banks, which are going to go up in this pandemic situation. Moving further and talking about the Shoppers' Track Index, because the Shoppers' Track Index is also one of the very important index to understand the recovery rate of the economy, working process of the economy, where we are considering the Purchase Managers Index and Industrial Production Index. In my presentation, I am focusing more on agriculture and particularly industry and some extent later on to the trade part also. So Industrial Production Index, which of our economy at the end of this, I mean the mid of this 2020, which is 55.5%. So if you see this graph, the graph says that in the month of January, May and September in 2019, and subsequently after January 2020 and during lockdown period, this has a drastically declined. There is a drastic reduction in this industrial production which has taken place. Similar is the case for Purchase Managers Index. Purchase Managers Index is applicable for both. It is for services as well as for the manufacturing commodities or the products. For the services, it is a blue line. For the manufacturing, it is of a yellow line. For the service rate is a 5.4. Now, please remember, service sector is that sector which is contributing 60% in gross domestic product of our economy. And that index is somewhere around 5.4% in after March 2020. And industrial production is up 27.4. I mean, this Purchase Managers Index is also having a drastic reduction in our economy. What is more important is a confidence index, because are we having a confidence in an economy and on whom we are believing more? We are believing more on the consumer confidence index, because consumers are the buyers, consumers are the purchasers. And this consumers confidence index, which has been constructed by the Reserve Bank of India recently, and the consumers confidence index says that if you see the trend in this, latest trend which says that after March 20 and April 20, May 20 onwards, which says that here CSI index, I mean current situation index is 63.7%, and FEI, future expectation index, is of 97.9%. So these are the two indexes which are very low in comparison with earlier period consumer confidence index. I mean, the consumers are also losing their confidence, not only the current confidence, even the future confidence also they are losing, because nobody knows tomorrow will be what day, or next month will be what kind of month, either it is of a good or bad. So people are having a more worry, and that worry leads to reduction in the consumer confidence index. And that is also not a good signal for Indian economy. Talking about what is more important, we know that everything we can do, but we cannot do anything related to money because money matters. And for economy, the GST, goods and service tax collection, is very important to run all these activities, including health-related expenses, which are taking place to the largest extent because of this COVID-19. What the trend, it says that the movement of goods and services which has been affected earlier, then the government is allowed to give some permission to the liquor shops, etc., to the industry, and to some extent it has been started to recover. But if you see the bar graph of the April 20, that time it was the lowest of low, 6.32%. Subsequently, it has become 8.65, and then it has become 8.91. I mean, up to the 90%, this GST collection which has started to move because of having some kind of unlock one process. So it is also a good thing for economy to run the other economic activities. What is more important is that our agriculture, which is very important. Some of the data I will refer subsequently, but we know that most of the people which depends upon, major of the population which depends upon the rural economy, and where recently the Kharif sowing period started, we know that once the Mriga Nakshatra start, then agriculture activities started to take place, and that is what we call as a Kharif period starts. But this is the positive thing we are having, that the Kharif sowing activity, which are been slowly and gradually having an increasing trend. What they were in June, 5th June 20, the 12th June 2020, 19th June 2020, 26th June 2020 onwards till the July, all that Kharif activities of the agriculture sector, I mean the sowing period which has been taken place in our economy. And that is a good thing. Why it is more important? If you see the earlier second or third slide, FAO has given a warning to globe as well as India that there will be the food shortage, food crisis. And agriculture is the only sector which can supply the food grains. And in India, it's a good thing that at least the sowing has started positively. Area under the cultivation has brought good monsoon has started in our economy. That's why the food crisis problem to some extent, which has been minimized. If the sowing would not have taken place, then we would have gone to the severe problem. But that problem, I think, is avoided because of initiative taken by the farmer community. Talking about the tractor registration, because tractor is one of the very important tool for the development of agriculture, that becomes one of the indicator. The average sale of the tractor in the month of April and May, it was very, very less. It was very negligible. But in the month of June onwards, this sale has been increased. There's nothing but registration has been started, and as a result that more number of tractors which we do find on in the economy. So this is also a positive sign for development of agriculture. Talking about the electricity consumption, because electricity consumption also becomes one of the indicator for the development of the economy, where we can use electricity for both industry, domestic consumption, as well as agricultural consumption. That's what using of pump set. So the power consumption trend in the month of March, April, May, and June. So in the month of April, March, it was very low. April, May, it was also very low. But in the month of June, it has started to go up. So these are the what one call as a trend lines, which indicates that the power consumption, which has started to increase it. But we find that in the month of April and June, that was little flat. I mean, only the domestic consumption was there. So this also gives us some positive change or positive trend. It shows the positive trend where the activities, I mean, economic activities have been started within the country. If you see that, what is the growth strategy of India? So if you refer some of the report which has been given by the well-known agencies, and if you see the left side chart, we know that though I was talking about a double digit, I mean, there was the process where in the month of, for example, 8.1, close to the 9 we have gone, but subsequently our growth rate has gone down to 4.78. So here, talking about the global economy, world as such, what is projected that the growth rate will be 1.5% by 2020. It's a minimum growth rate the world economy which will have. World Bank, which is a very important or very well-known institution, financial institution, what they have projected for our economy, it is expected that our growth rate will be somewhere between 1.5 to 2.8 during 2021. And that is what we can assume, that growth will be to that extent slow, because many economic activities are very, very slow. And that's why it will be very less since 1991. So since liberalization, we have not experienced such kind of growth rate, but now we will experience. This is the projection. Asian Development Bank, which has also projected India economy will grow by 4% in 2021. So these are the some quarters: first quarter, second quarter, fourth quarter. If I refer the fourth quarter growth, January, March 2020, then we know that it was 4.2%. That was the lowest after 2008. Moving for the India's growth trajectory further, and because of this COVID-19 pandemic, the Fitch Rating Agency, which estimates growth will be 2% in this year. IMF, International Monetary Fund, which is also the one of the international financial institutions, which have projected Indian economy will grow at the rate of 1.9% in this year. S&P Global Rating Agency, which has been projected, the rate will be somewhere around 3.5%. Earlier they estimated 5.2, but now they have reduced it to 3.5%. Indian Rating Research, they have projected earlier 5.5%, but now they have reduced our economic growth to 3.6%. Moody's Investor Services, where we believe more on this, and they have projected our growth rate in this year will be 2.5. Earlier they estimated 5.3. Now they have been revised to 2.5%. Acute Rating Agency, they said that our rate will be around 5 to 6%, and it's expected that GDP growth by 2020 will be somewhere around or in the band of 2 to 3%. Some of the economics, they are also projecting India may grow negative also, but be a positive, because some of the activities we have started in economy, in lockdown, in unlock one process. So I will have a minimum growth rate. That's why it will be in the band of 2 to 3%. And what we were trying to take our economy from $2.9 trillion economy to $5 trillion economy. For that, what is required is of 7% growth rate till 2024. If our growth rate goes at the rate of 2%, 3%, then this target, which the present government has been kept in mind to make our economy as a third largest economy with $5 trillion, becomes impossible for us because of this COVID-19 pandemic situation. India's growth tragedy, if you talk about the various countries in the globe, and all economies of the world are in risk, India is no exception for that. But what is expected by S&P Global Rating Agency, they expect our economy will have some extent better growth compared to the rest of the countries. So this chart, which says that there are many countries which have been put on this X bar, X line. So of this, we believe that our growth rate will be somewhat better compared to the countries like other, maybe South African or other, what we can call as the Gulf countries. So India's growth rate will be somewhat better, that is projected by S&P. Moving further about the healthcare service, because health sector, which is of very important. And we know that in the health sector, not only the medicines, but health infrastructure is more important. And what is more infrastructure? Doctors and number of beds. What problem we are finding in the metro cities? People are not getting paid to admit. The number of beds are more important. Hospitals are also more important. Doctors are also more important. How much was our expenditure on that? That is what the care we have not taken in the past. How much amount of income we should be spent on the health sector out of total GDP, the proportion was very less. That was somewhere around 1 to 1.5%. Even the education sector also we are ignoring. So these are the basic fundamental sector after the three livelihoods, what we call as food, shelter, and clothing. After that, what comes in the is of health and education. So the expenditure on this was very less. So this graph says that which country which is having the largest infrastructure, so South Korea, Germany, European Union, Netherlands, Italy, even China, US, they are having this. average of this infrastructure of the world, we are very below the average of India. We are not in a position to compare with these countries, but average figure of world global health infrastructure, we are even below to the average of that, and that is around 0.7 and 0.8 respectively. It means for 1,000 doctors, for 1,000 Indians, we are having 0.7 doctors and 0.8 beds. I mean 0.7 and 0.8 beds and the doctors. That is to that pathetic situation our health sector is, and medicines and other things which are the other part of this healthcare services. For the healthcare sector, India was a laggard, not taken initiative in earlier days before this pandemic situation. That's why we're having a trouble kind of problem, and that's why the people are talking about the beds are not available, doctors are not available, medicines are not available. That is what one has to spend more on this. Moving to the very important part, as I said, food crisis, which will become one of the crises globally if this pandemic situation goes longer. If it gets shortcut, if it cut down immediately in a short duration, then one can save it. But subsequently, it will have a very big problem. And that's why agriculture plays a very important role. Talking about our agriculture is contributing 11% in gross domestic product and providing employment, livelihood to the 52% of our Indian population. And this COVID-19 impact on agriculture is a complex, it's a varied across the segments. Across the segments, think about cultivation is one, laborers are other, fisheries, dairies, cooperative farming, etc. All that we are going to cover. Output front, agriculture, mining sector seems to have held fort. On the expenditure front, government spending seems to have saved the day. We know that through the public distribution system, Government of India and the Maharashtra government both have started to supply the essential grains, essential food grains to all the people, not only to only the red color or kesari color or white color cards, but including all those who don't have even the ration card, they are also getting the food grain. Some will be the exception, but this is what the policy initiative they have taken into. That's why the hunger problem to some extent will be avoided. Private consumption, gross fixed capital formation, and net export is having a disappointing because people are not placing order to others. For example, bed sheets and fans, or maybe for the furnitures, we are not placing orders nowadays because order for the food and the essential commodities only takes place. So rest of the non-essential consumption, that's what the private consumption, which is having disappointing problem. And to that industry, there will be some problem. Talking about agriculture, forest, etc., they constitute 12% of the output. They employ 50% of the labor force. India accounts 17% of the world's food consumers because population size is more. That's why our food basket is of higher. India accounts 10.24% of the total world's cereal production of our agriculture sector, particularly cereals. Cereals means wheat, rice, jawar, bajra. So our is of around 10.24%. And we rank third next to China and USA. India is the third largest producer of the cereals. India ranked first in most of the commodities like pulses, second in the rice, wheat, cotton production. Also, we are second largest in the fruits and vegetable production. And we are emerged as a regular exporter. It's nothing but India is exporting regularly this agriculture commodity to the rest of the world, particularly the rice and the wheat, because Punjab and Haryana, they are the major, the largest producers of these cereals. The livelihood of more than half of the Indian population is involved in agriculture and allied activities. And that's why the largest number of poor people of the world, we know that in the world, India is not only having this plus point, but the number of poor in India are also more. So poverty is of very severe. Talking about the further movement of agricultural labor, what we call as the cultivator, as well as the marginal workers or the landless laborers. But if you see the data of NSSO means National Sample Survey Organization, which is conducting the surveys. Next to census, this data becomes authentic. where the principal source of livelihood is of 55.3% to the household in the year 2014. That was the 60th round of NSSO. Census of 2011, that was the latest census, because census takes place after a decade, after 10 years. It was 2011, subsequently it will be 2021, but that may postpone because of this pandemic kind of situation. And that says 54.6% of total workers in India were part of the agriculture sector. And that's why agriculture labor rest, and they were cultivators. And how many were the cultivators? 45.1% were the cultivators. The rest were only the laborers. And for the first time since independence, agricultural laborers, 144.3 million have outnumbered the cultivators, 118.8 million. Now, please remember, there's a difference between the agriculture laborer and the cultivator. Cultivator is the owner of a land. Agriculture laborer is not the owner of a land. He is only working on the neighbor's land. So they have overnumbered than the cultivator. So the problem of Indian economy, particularly agrarian economy, is having a more crisis because landless laborers are increasing in our country. That is not because of this, but that may be because of the government policies. Talking about the Indian agriculture, and where recently the survey which has been conducted by the NABARD, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, in the year 2018, there was a financial survey, and that survey says that how much was the monthly income, average monthly income of the household in India. It was 8,059 rupees. So on an average per month, 8,059 rupees the Indian are getting. That was the NABARD survey says. Agriculture household were getting 8,931 as compared to non-agricultural ones. Non-agricultural ones means laborer who is working on the farm. So the agriculture cultivator is getting a little better, but the laborer who is working on others' farm, whose income is of less. So that is somewhere around average of 7,000, 8,000. Wage laborer, which was most remunerative source of income, because most of the people we say that instead of working, cultivating our own farm, better to work on others' farm, because continuously we are getting, that is the remunerative, and that may be because of various kind of schemes announced by the government of India. Higher among non-agriculture household as compared to agriculture one. Non-agriculture people's contribution becoming higher compared to the agriculture one. Is nothing but cultivators are losing their income. That may be because of increase in the cost, which I am covering now. For the agriculture household, cultivation remain as the most prominent source of contribution. That is 35%. And overall monthly income followed by the wage labor, that is of 34%. And other, what we call as the shopkeepers or maybe private traders, government, private service persons, they are getting 16%. And the non-agricultural, it was seeing that a private services were 32%, household income for the wage labor, which was 54%. So what this data says that because of increase in the cost of cultivation, the cultivator is getting lesser, but the worker in that farm is getting the more. So as I said, that there is a paradoxical situation. And I say thanks to the farmer, because our sowing period has started smoothly because of good monsoon and the agriculture activities are to the better extent. But still there is a paradoxical situation to the rest of the global economy. Huge food production and with large undernourishment and poor population. So we're having the food production. We know that we are the third largest producer of the cereals in the world, but undernourishment and poor, garibi ani upasma. In that case, which we are also having a large number. Global Hunger Index of the last year, we say that India ranked 103rd out of 119 countries. See that our rank is of a very higher side, and that is a negative signal. That is what? Not good, because 103rd we rank in the Global Hunger Index, where the score is 31.1, and most of the people we suffer. Pakistan is of 106, Bangladesh is of 86. See that our neighboring east country, Bangladesh, is having a rank 86, which is better than the India related to Global Hunger Index. World Bank in 2011 estimate that 23.6% of India's population fall below the poverty line internationally, and they are earning $1.25 per day. And that's why the fifth of the global poor side in India. So India is having a fifth largest country related to global poor population. Government of India in 2011-12 says 21.9% people are living below poverty line. state of food insecurity in the world 2018 estimated that India is a home to more than 195.9 million undernourished. It's nothing but 196 million undernourished people which are there in our country, which is having 14.8% of the national population. Roughly 15 people out of 100 people are not getting sufficient food in India. That was the estimation of this agency. And this is not a good signal. And in COVID-19 pandemic situation is also very severe, which will lead to more crisis. Talking about the food security and the COVID-19, there is a most critical challenge for the government machineries. We know that only the health department which are functioning to control this COVID-19 pandemic problem. The rest of them are having a difficulty because they are not allowed to move out because mobility restrictions have been imposed across the regions. And because of this lockdown period, making the food grains, fruits, vegetables, and other essential items available to the consumer, both in rural and urban area, is a difficult problem because essential commodity trucks are allowed to move on road to carry the fruits and vegetables, but delivery to the door of the what you can call as a household becomes difficult, and that is what the great challenge, because everybody is having a fear in mind that this is the outbreak which is increasing, and either one will become what you can call as problematic to that. That's why a fear in mind which leads to the critical challenge. In the history of famine, we know that the Bengal famine, if you remember that, where the hunger and the poverty which was very more. So one has to remember that in any kind of pandemic problem, the most problem is related to malnourishment and the hunger. That's why one has to remember the past history, not only the globe, but our Indian also. What is more important here in the last 3 months, if you see that the food prices are little stable, nothing but the prices have not shoot up to that extent. Somehow, either day or two that must have gone up in the exception cases, but they are more or less stable. Did not have any earning to the people because people are locked down in the places. They are at home. That's why the earning has been stopped. This lockdown process led to prices are expected to rise because if the things moves further and if the shortage takes place, supply bottleneck takes place, in time the essential commodities are not reaching in the market. If they are not getting delivered to the household's doorstep, then the prices may shoot up. By the price inflation. That's why the food inflation may go up in days to come. Some of the price rise because farmers are unlikely to be the beneficiaries. Who should get a benefit because of price rise? A farmer should get a benefit. But what is happening? The farmer is not the getting benefit. Wholesaler, a retailer, middleman, who are the beneficiaries in this kind of situation. What is more important here is, and one has to pay more attention on the farmer suicide. Farmer suicide is not the new case because in many years it is happening. That's not a good thing because farmer committed suicide in most of the part. In Uttar Pradesh it has happened because of not availability of the labor, because the farm was ready to harvest, laborers were not available, and because of that kind of crisis, he committed the suicide. There are many farmers from the Muzaffarnagar districts, Uttar Pradesh state. There are many farmers from the other part of the Maharashtra, what you call as Marathwada region, Vidarbha region, they have committed the suicide. What the statistics says that so far between the January to April, and as per the available data, that says that between March and April, during this lockdown period, 109 farmers in Maharashtra, Marathwada, and other part of the Maharashtra, which has committed the suicide. So suicide is not a good thing because in a COVID-19 outbreak also, the farmer suicides are increasing. Coming to other part of the rural economy, dairy sector, which is providing some money in the pocket of the farmers or maybe the rural people. So that is also suffering. But it has a very mixed picture. Mixed picture in the sense, because of lockdown, consumers are initially crowded milk parlor to the stock up. I mean, this dairy, private dairies, cooperative dairies, and other public sector dairies, which are collecting the milk from the farmer. But their rate has been declined. We know that to some extent, the rates which should be given to the farmer, then they are not getting. Amul is one of the largest milk producer in the Gujarat. That's a cooperative sector dairy, which is having a very famous or very important trend for the dairy development. That is also having some kind of problem. Milk prices started to collapse. We know that not only because of the government policy, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation, the collection of the milk, where the milk gets collected, the collection centers are having problem. If the subsequent supply gets stopped, then collection centers will not collect the milk from the farmer. That's why some of the extent the prices are collapsed. Some of the dairies where there is a large stock of milk, they are converting milk into milk powder. So I some extent that conversion process they have been started, but the prices of the skim milk powder, which has also hit, and that has been gone down to 230 rupees per kg. Poultry is also one of the important allied activity of the agriculture sector. Fishery is also one of the very important activity of the coastal sector, where they are giving some kind of income to the working people in these areas. And there is a rumors like that chicken is not good for the consumption, and consumption of the chicken leads to the COVID-19. So because of that, most of the people have started not to consume the chickens in the initial stage during the first and the second lockdown period. But subsequently, this rumor has been removed from the minds of the people that, and some extent, these chickens, I mean, the what we call as the non-vegetarian problem, which has been got solved, and this industry started to get some kind of sale. So, but it was also affected during the lockdown period. Fisheries were also affected because we know that the contribution of the fishery in our economy is 1.75 lakh crores in the gross domestic product. And during the lockdown, 16 million fishermen which has suffered because of this. I mean, fishermen are not allowed to go into the high deep fish to cultivate the fish, so they have been also locked down. Marine products where we are exporting and we get income from the foreign, that becomes our foreign exchange reserve, $6.7 billion, which was the income which we get through the fishery export, that also stuck. COVID-19 has greatly affected the livelihood of the fisher communities, livelihood of the poultry farmers, livelihood of the dairy farmers, because all either way has also got suffered. COVID-19 lockdown has put marine fishery sector in daily. How much is the daily loss? 224 crore rupees a daily loss, which the fishermen are losing. Our country is losing. This is the estimation given by CIFT, Central Institute of Fishery Technology. So that's what the great loss which the economy is having because of this COVID-19. What is more important, floriculture as well as the onion crop, which is very important because onion is a daily consumption commodity. Floriculture is a seasonal festival type of product which the people are using. So the domestic demand for both, which has been suffered, and particularly the flower season. We know that in the month of March, April, May, what we call as, in Marathi, we call as a Vaishak period, where the marriages takes place more. Once we have the March and thereafter what we call as Gudi Padwa, then onwards our festival starts. And every 15 days we are having either of the festivals and where we make use of flowers. But because of this lockdown situation, demand for that flower industry or flower has been not placed. They have suffered more, those who have grown it. That may be roses, that may be marigold, or that may be any other part of flower, because that community which has suffered a very lot. Export of roses has been also suffered because if the domestic demand is less, one can export it outside, but export is also banned for the flower export and their income, that foreign exchange we are losing. Onion farmers are going through the deep distress. What is happening? The price per kg and cost of cultivation of the onion, if you take that into account, one can understand that the cultivator's cost of production, which was 5.5 to 6 per kg, and the price within the market, it was around 7 to 8 rupees per kg. Marginally, they were getting. If the price goes further down, sometimes 3 rupees per kg, 4 rupees per kg, if the onion gets sold within the market, then that will be lesser than the cost of cultivation. So there will be very great loss to the farmers if the onion prices goes down. And that has happened in the past. The prices were also very less. Talking about the labor market in agriculture sector, as we know that, as I said, availability of the labor should be more important because once the Kharif period starts, after the Rabi gets over, Rabi becomes harvesting period and Kharif becomes a sowing period. And during that, the labors are required more. And there was a problem of labor for the agriculture sector during these last 3-4 months. Inability to access the market if the farmer has a produce, but where to sell? Nearby market, district market, state market, national market, because mobility of the transport were stopped or that were very minimum. And that's why that was also the challenge before the farmer. Non-availability of the labor and the lack of market access were the two major problems for a rural economy as such. But those farmers which were technocrats, those farmers who were mobile users, those farmers who were having some kind of digital kind of information or technocrats, they have saved to some extent by selling their produce through the farmer producers organization, what you call as FPOs. They have been formed, and by grouping the farmers together, they have sold their produce in the distant market. Moving further, migration of the workers from workplace to their native place has become a problem, because workplace is a different place and native place is a different place. Moving from one place to another place because mobility restriction is there, because of this lockdown, because of this district borders are so sealed, and that also led to the problem to the agriculture sector. Inadequate supply of labor to the harvest rabi crops, then exclude movement of the farmers. Farmers movement were also not allowed. Increasing use of mechanical harvesters, where one can make use of tractors, where one can make use of harvesters. Those were this kind of technocratic farmers. They have got a help because of technology, where a machine can work instead of the labor. I mean, machine can replace the labor. That only farmers have saved their produce. Moving further for the commercial crop, because cereals and pulses, these are the consumable essential commodity crops. Commercial crops were that kind of crops which can give some kind of income in the hands of the farmers. But if you see since March, April, where we can say that mango season, which was there during the summer period, and that time there was a lockdown. By selling of a mango, for example, coconut mango, a very famous is of Alfonso mango, for example. Moving from one place to another place for the farmer becomes very difficult. So the commercial crops sale of that becomes drastically suffered. Laborers were not available. Shortage of migrant labor, sharp increase in daily wages. Those laborers who are ready to work now during this COVID-19 position or outbreak, but the industrialists are paying them lesser. We know that there is a wage cut which has taken place. As per my own knowledge, where I can got through the different friends, that a 30% reduction in the salary which has taken place in unorganized sector, where they were earning 100 rupees, they are getting now 70 rupees. So to that extent, there is a wage reduction which has taken place. Rice is high as 50%. Non-remunerative producers, since the prices have collapsed due to the either lack of market access, labor shortage, most milk processing plants, cold storage units, warehouses, which has experienced this kind of process, where laborers are required to such because of shortage, they are not functioning. Only the machine-made work which is going on. I mean, the big plants which are functioning like coal, like a Varna, like a Amul, where a machine is working, mechanical process are more than the manual process. That is functioning systematically. Shortage of drivers and operators, where the trucks are there, but the drivers are not there, because being a human element, he is also having a fear in mind that if I move from one place to another place, and if I get in a contact of some other positive patient, definitely it will become a crisis for his family. That's why they are also not moving out. So there is a problem of this kind of operators, what we call as the drivers. Machine repair shops are also closed, where the lorries or trucks or the machineries are to be checked and rechecked and repaired in a workshop. These workshops are not working. To the limited extent they are working. So there is also a rush. And that is what this is also having some problem. Rice mills in Kerala, shortage of migrant workers are also there. Not procuring adequate supply of paddy from the farmer. Farmers have produced the paddy, but that should go to the rice mill to convert paddy into rice. But the procurement which is not taking place. There are certain commodities which are ready to harvest, but harvesting which has not taken place. For example, sugarcane harvesting. For example, what can call as paddy harvesting. For example, jawar, bajra harvesting at the end of the Rabi period. That were also suffered. Moving to another sector, what we call as industry. Industry is also the engine of economic growth like agriculture, but agriculture is very important during this pandemic COVID-19 breakdown, because that supply the food. Food is very important for us than any other non-food item. Particularly, I'm covering the small, medium, micro enterprises because that is having a large source that provides more employment to the economy. What the statistics of our Indian economy says that how many MSMEs are there, micro, small, medium enterprises in India? 6.34 crores micro, small, and medium enterprises are there in India. Of that, how much employment they are providing? 110 million people get employed in this kind of sector. That's very important for Indian economy to increase what we can call as purchasing power of the community. 11 crore approx and 1.3 million jobs every year. Every year, 1.3 million jobs are provided by MSME sector. That's why the MSME is a powerful tool to the Indian economy to create the employment. And in that also, the textile becomes very important. So here, as I said, that textile is very important after the agriculture. Agriculture is the largest source. And then after that, textile industry, which is providing more because capital output ratio of the textile is very high. It accounts for 45% of manufacturing output. MSME accounts 45% of the total output of industry, 40% of export. Out of 100 rupees, 40 rupees, the MSMEs are exporting. Their commodity we export to other countries. But what was expected that it was a vision made by the present government. That was a mission which we have launched to make MSME, to give push to the MSME and to increase their contribution to the extent of 50% in the GDP of manufacturing output. At present, it is 29%. So 29 to 50, which was the target, which we decided by the present government, but that becomes difficult for our economy. Majority of the India's population lives in villages. We know that our economy is of a rural-based agrarian economy. But within that, there are different tiers of the villages, tiers of the city, what you call as tier 1 city, tier 2 city, tier 3 city, tier 4 cities, metro cities, mega cities, etc. And if you see the COVID-19 pandemic situation, all that tier 1 and tier 2 cities are blocked because of this kind of problem. What is left out is only tier 3 and tier 4 cities. Mumbai, Pune, for example, these are the mega cities, comes under the tier 1, tier 2. Because of this problem, they are severely affected. Tier 3, tier 4 cities, maybe for example, Sangli, Satara, Kolhapur, these are the maybe Sindhudurg, Ratnagiri, where the MSMEs can function, where outbreak is less. That is what one can explore more. That is the only chance which we have to push up or recover our economy. What is the contribution of this MSME in the country's economy? From 2011 onwards till 2017, if you see that, growth rate of this MSME has gradually declined from 15% to the 9%. Its share in the GDP, which has been also gone down from 32% to 31%. And MSME is gross value added product. And share in GDP has also declined from 30% to the 28.9%. But remember that this government has given a mission to push up the growth of MSME from 28-29% to the 50%. But because of this COVID-19, we are having problem to reach to that target. If you see the earlier definition of MSME, because presently in the month of June 2020 and the 13th June 2020, 1st June 2020 and 13th June 2020, Ministry of Finance, Government of India has changed the definition of the MSME. Earlier, there were the two components, manufacturing and the services. Now they have been merged together and called as only the one component. But if you go by the earlier data, earlier classification, two type of classification, then we know that rural and urban part of the MSME, where we do find more, we find that in a rural area, 324 lakh MSMEs are there. In urban area, 309 lakh MSMEs are there. Total are 633.88. Of that, share of manufacturing is 31, trade is of 36, others is of 33. So a largest share is of trade-related activities of MSME. Distribution of enterprises into micro, small, medium, if we talk about that, then what is more, Micro enterprises are more. Out of 633 lakh enterprises, micro enterprises are 630. Small and medium enterprises are hardly 3 lakh and 0.05 lakh. So why more is of a micro enterprises where one has to give more push to improve its own production. Of that, how many are in rural area? 51% are in rural area and 49% are in urban area. So this classification, rural urban, is not having a more difference, is of having only a minor difference, but still a rural is having more than the urban. Talking about the employment, how much was employment? As I said earlier, 1,109 lakh people which are getting employment. Of that, rural employment is 497 and urban employment is 612 lakh. But the share of this employment in manufacturing is 32, then trade is 35, and other services is 33. So the proportion in the rural urban is, if you consider, urban is providing more employment than the rural. Recently, one of the survey which was conducted by one of the very well-known agency, and that survey says that reveals that how much problem, challenges which the industry is facing in our country. So they are having a problem of managing cost. Managing cost is having a 60% problem to the industry. Big demand means lack of demand. 59% industrialist says demand is less. Financial liquidity, financial cash in hand. 57% manufacturers are saying that cash in hand is our problem. Supply chain issue, mobility of product, maybe raw material to the industry and final product to the market. That mobility, people says, producer says 40% is the problem. Manpower availability is 43% and other issues are 15%. This is the recently last 15 days, the survey which has been conducted by the agency, and the problems of that industrialists are analyzed. Moving further and talking about the part what is to be covered lastly is of trade, and then we'll go what is to be done subsequently. Talking about the trade is of both domestic trade and the international trade. We know that both are suffered in COVID-19 breakdown. But if you see the past history of our economy, India's export trade trajectory, so that says that April 19 till December 19 and January 20 onwards till March 20, April 20. If you see this graph, what we see that there is a drastic reduction in the total export of India which has been taken place. You see that there is a lot of difference. Earlier, the amount which we were having earlier and now we are having, there is a negative, we have lost more foreign exchange reserve because of this COVID-19. That is what export is the engine of growth. We always say that export is the engine of growth, which pushes our economy further. But this has drastically declined, not only the decline, but a reduction which has been taken place. And that reduction is the loss of this trade. All that figures I will not read. The chart is self-explanatory. Talking about India and China, what is the tie between India and China related to the export as well as international trade? If you see the earlier picture, the past data, and if you compare the trade of India with the rest of the country, including the China, then if you see that India's trade with the China, export to China is of 0.6%. Nothing but we are exporting to the extent of 0.6% to the China. Intermediate goods, nothing but goods neither in raw nor in finished intermediate goods, that is of 0.7% is the contribution in GDP. And tourism from China, the tourist which we get in India, tourist which we attract from China to India, their portion in our GDP is 0.2. And on an average, how much is the contribution in our GDP of Chinese trade to India is 0.5. So if we see this, which we are not having a major tie-up with China, though there are certain industry, what we call as medium scale and the small scale industry, where certain equipment which we take from the China, there are some raw material which we borrow from the China, our electric market which will be dumped, that will be dumped in our own market by the China, that electronic goods, that is what more. But on an average, the share of the China in India's trade is 0.5. What is more is Vietnam, Taiwan, Thailand, Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, etc. So presently, there is a tussle between the India and China, which is going on in a border. And everybody is giving us what you can call as a slogan that is what local ko vocal banao is nothing but follow the Swadeshi ideas. And if that is what our approach, and if you follow that, definitely one can make our India self-sufficient, at least in the production of such industrial goods. And that's why if we are not totally relying on China, one can extend our border relations with rest of the country. There is a larger scopes with Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Philippines, where one can enlarge it. But this COVID pandemic situation, which has been given what one can call as a signaling thought to our Indian economy, to which countries we should trade more and to which countries we believe or trust more. Because presently, having trust with China becomes very difficult because of border issues which are giving some difficult problems even during COVID-19 situation. Moving further about trade, trade is already disrupted. Supply chain has become a negative impact on that. There is a fall in the commodity prices, weakening export in the countries. Most of the countries, their exports are banned because they are not importing. Our export is also stopped. Fiscal revenue has become a down. We know that foreign exchange reserve, either if you are not exporting to other countries, our exchange, which will be very less, and that foreign exchange reserve, which will be also less, nothing but our fiscal revenue, which will become lesser. Lockdown has immediately led to drop in domestic demand, our domestic demand, effective domestic demand, which has been also affected. Indian export has been hit by lack of container availability and delayed payment for shipment. If we are exporting to the other countries via the pack container, but the payment in time, which we are not getting, because every country is having a problem of money and every is having a priority to spend on health infrastructure. That's why these are the issues with other infrastructure which are taking place. Shift of Indian focus from basmati rice to medicines, masks, and medical supplies. Earlier, our focus was about to export more to the basmati rice, but now we are exporting medicine. We know that some of the medicines which we are pioneering it were exported to the USA. USA, we are exporting some kind of medicines where the president of USA has given the what one call as ask to the government of India the essential medicines related to that the supply. So the government of India supply. What we are supplying now? We are supplying medicines. We are supplying masks. We are also supplying essential medical equipment also during this pandemic situation. Well, further, China has been a major market for Indian product. As I said earlier, that may be seed, that may be petrochemical, that may be germs, that may be jewelry, but now that is also got affected. Fishery sector is anticipated to incur a loss to the extent of 1,300 crores. Indian export 36% related to diamonds to China. Cancellation upon 4 major trade events. Earlier, we have announced the trade events in various states of India. Government of India has announced. Maharashtra government has taken certain events. Some of the foreign exchange, foreign direct investment, which is moving within our own state. That is a very good thing for us. But between February and April, which is likely to cause estimated loss of around 8,000 to 10,000 crores because of the cancellation of the trade events. India's total export to the extent of 34% of the petrochemicals to China is also got affected. Moving further and talking about the impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy in general, and if you talk about that in general at a broader level, the shrinkage of export, because the international trade which has affected, and as a result of that, import and export business that also affected, and our export has got down to the extent of 70 million traders who representing this export. I mean, export business houses. This is not a small figure. 70 million traders in India which are associated with the MSME, they also got affected. Their turnover was 380 lakh rupees, and expected take from this basket was around rupees 20 crores, 90 lakh rupees. That also shrink because of this COVID-19. Halt and cessation of production, I mean the cancellation of the stoppage of production. If you take the example of the Maruti Udyog Limited, what called as Maruti Suzuki, that's a automobile industry, whose production was zero in the month of April. That plant was completely shut down. After April 20, then February production was around it may be 1,40,933 cars. But February they have produced around 1.5 lakh cars. But March, April, May, their production was completely nil. Subsequently, they started to produce. This is what the production process of not only this, other industries also, manufacturing industries, textile industries, chemical industries, other allied sector industries, which also suffered a lot because of this COVID-19. There is a revenue loss and there is a job loss. These figures I will not read once again, but sales are less, that's why the revenue is less. Industries are not functioning, that's why the job losses which has been taken place. Change of buying pattern has been changed. Essential consumption and non-essential consumption, people have started to categorize it. Households have already categorized their consumption and they have given priority to the essential consumption. For the non-essential commodity goods, the consumption has been postponed. Liquidity is squeezed within the market. Everybody wants a cash in hand to buy the essential commodity, but there is a shortage of fund, not only to the consumers, but also to producers to pay the salaries, to pay the electricity bills, to pay the rent, or to pay the other kind of essential expenses. So that is also the liquidity squeeze. Non-availability of skill and semi-skilled manpower, that is also not available in the industrial sector, making grim picture of the MSME sector, which employ both skilled, semi-skilled, etc. But that is what also affected because of this. Migrant worker is a very big issue because we know that Mumbai, Pune, and other major cities, if you see that where the industrial activities were more, from that the workplace to the native place, most of the people have been migrated. That's why the local and the have been started by the state government and the central government with the definitely permission of the Minister of Railway. The state government has started from Mumbai to the Uttar Pradesh, Mumbai to the Madhya Pradesh, even from Nashik to the Uttar Pradesh. Most of the workers were travel by the train services made available by the state government of Maharashtra. So the people have migrated from workplace to their native place. That is also one kind of issue. Cancellation of the order were placed before January 2020, maybe in the year 2019, that also got cancelled. Demand for necessary inputs required to produce a final product in the form of raw, maybe for paper industry, for example, many other kind of food processing industry, or maybe hygiene industry, maybe pharmaceutical industry, that is also affected. Disruption of the flow of material and the goods as having some kind of negative cash flow income. And what is more important is because of this COVID-19, environment problem to some extent got having some kind of positive impact, where pollution has been reduced, both noise pollution, air pollution, water pollution. If you see the rivers which are flowing and those who are 24/7, all that clean water we do find in the river. That's why the cleaning of the rivers which has taken place in this pandemic situation. That's why the pollution to some extent is having a positive impact. In economic theory, what we call as, once we have a shutdown and once we move from one stage to another stage, from a recession to the recovery, then recovery of our Indian economy is it what kind of shape? Either it will have a U shape, or it will have a V shape, or it will have a W kind of shape. These are the three shapes we do find in a recovery stage. But taking this into account, what is expected that V kind of recovery step is immediate. I mean, immediately it goes down and subsequently it goes up, isn't it? At a larger scale. Rate is of very high, but that is not expected nowadays. U kind of shape, it will take a longer time to recover. I mean, it will go down, somewhere it will become stable, and slowly it will start moving up. That is the U shape. But what is expected under the recovery, particularly related to India nowadays, is of neither will be in V shape nor will be in U shape. Our recovery will be a W kind of shape. Why this is so? Because we have declared a lockdown position. Then we have announced the unlock process. We have started the unlock process. Now recently we have moved towards the lockdown process. Our policies are switching over from lockdown to unlock to the lock. If this goes up, then we move to down, then we move to up, and then we will go down, and then we'll move up. As we start our economic activity, accordingly we can move. So the recovery period of our Indian economy will be of W shape. That is what which will be expected in this crisis. This is what we call as a V shape, but that will not happen. Then recovery which will take place because of what? What is the strength of our Indian economy which will not lead to the depression from the recession? Rather, we will switch from recession to the recovery. Nothing but we will not go further down. Rather, we will move up from down. For that, what is our strength? For that, what is our supporting sectors? So the things which I said earlier also is that a recovery and there is a relief for us is through rural economy. If you compare urban economy and the rural economy, urban area and the urban area, we do find we have a positive scope in the rural area, and through the rural area only we can drive our economy more. How that can be? Rural economy is likely to recover faster than the urban economy because urban crises are more, rural crises are there, but comparison wise, relatively that is a lesser. So that rural area, which will give some kind of what you can call as engine type of growth to the economy. Urban India grappling with the outbreak. Rural India is accounting 65% of the population, contribute 45% in the GDP, offers the best bet to support economic activity. Forecast of a normal monsoon. Why? We believe that rural will support for the recovery because not only the sowing area which has been more in our economy, but there is a good monsoon this year with the economy. We do find that in most part of the India, including the Maharashtra, the monsoon which has a reasonably good monsoon which has been taken place. And that's why the chances of a bumper crop output in the Kharif period which will take place. If at all the government give the minimum support price, and if that they will hike, the farmers will get more income. And if the farmers get more income, 65% population of the economy will increase their purchasing capacity, and that will drive the wheel of our economy. But this driving the economy through the rural wheel is having some kind of strength. With this, then other one is MG Narega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, which is very important. That we know that a migration of the people from workplace to the native place which has taken place. Nationally and the state level also, what is more important, the government has to give the poor fund allocation to Narega scheme because providing employment is more important. If they only get locked down in their rural houses, they don't have what you can call as a work, then definitely economy will have very bad problem. So to channelize the wheel of the economy, giving the money, encouraging the purchasing power in the hands of the people, which is very important. And Narega is one of the source which will also drive the rural wheel of the economy. That is also the scope. Food Corporation of India, we know that the food stock which is available with us, 97 million tons of stock which is lying with the Food Corporation of India. From that one can withdraw and give to the PDS. Through that one can reduce the malnourishment and the hunger. Another wheel which we do find is a MSME wheel. So earlier I said 51% MSMEs are in rural area and 49% are in urban area. If you allow that 51% MSME to start functioning, then definitely that will drive the rural economy. But the support to the rural economy will be through the MSME. 63 million MSMEs are there in India. Rupees 3 lakh crores they will contribute for, funding is contributed to the MSME. MSME have been estimated 20 lakh crores of loan by the banks. Recently, Governor of Reserve Bank of India has also given the financial package for the recovery of the economy, including the Ministry of Finance, central government's package. So I put the package which has been given support to the MSME and interest subvention scheme for the MSME for the next 6 months. From the date of announcement by the RBI till the next period, and the 6 months has been given. How much it will cost to the GDP is 0.6% it will cost to the gross domestic product. That's why it will have the amount to the extent of 1.2 lakh crores. And the need much larger intervention is nothing but not only this much, and this much package is not sufficient to drive the wheel of the recovery of the economy. Even further, more intervention from all the agencies of the central and state government is required. What is more important for the recovery is medium-term Atmanirbhar Bharat. So Atmanirbhar Bharat is the scheme which has been announced by the central government that will also lead to the recovery of the economy. A clear plan for the economic revival should be jotted down, and as per the need of the area, as per the necessity of the region, packages should be given to them. Maybe a minimal disruption which will take place. Then Indian weak economy require a demand side and supply side pivot. Both demand side as well as the supply side things are essential in the essence of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Not only the demand side is more important, even supply chain is more important. That's why both has to be given weightage for the recovery of the economy. good part of our consumption. We know that the population size of our economy is large, but the consumption is of more. Essential commodity consumption is more. Electronics, plastics, chemicals, other industrial commodity, where demand is more. For the population, more the demand. Domestic demand is very high. But that is also the strength of our economy. Export growth be to be tepid. I mean, struggle to both make for India and to make in India. I mean, those who are the MSMEs, those who are in the sector, what should be the target for them? The target should be, one is producing for the India, what we call make for India. And for whom? Make in India. I mean, where is the place? Place should be the place in our own border. That's why in Bharat. So make in India and make for India. That should be the slogans. Then putting money in the hands of the people will not be enough. Just giving some money. I mean, the central government has given what can call as 500 rupees in the hands of the needy people through the Janadhana account, isn't it? And people are withdrawing that. That is not sufficient. 500 rupees amount is not sufficient. What is more important is a universal basic income, which was the plan, which was planned by the government earlier by the economic advisor to the government of India. His scheme must be implemented in this pandemic situation. I will cover under the way forward point. Need widespread jobs to create sustainable demand growth. I mean, the employment is to be provided. So the Atmanirbhar Bharat will become a successful part, if at all, if you follow this strategy. There are 5 pillars of this Atmanirbhar Bharat. So we know that economy, infrastructure, technology-driven system, demography, and demand. These are the 5. I will repeat: economy, infrastructure, technology-driven system, demography, size of population, and demand. These are the 5 pillars of Atmanirbhar Bharat. All that 5 pillars simultaneously, if you pay more attention, then definitely a recovery will become faster. And that's why the Prime Minister of our country has given a slogan, local ko, vocal karo. All focus driven over into the Indian made product and make in India should be given. So depending upon the other country for the consumption of the commodity to the extent one can reduce it. If not to the 100%, but slowly and gradually one can start it to minimize the dependency by giving the focus to make in India and for the India, then definitely this will lead to the Atmanirbhar Bharat. RBI has also declared some kind of monetary policy measures. Repo rate has been gone down to the extent of 4.4%. Definitely that will help to the house loan borrowers and other kind of loan borrowers will get the benefit of that. Money is also injected within the economy, nothing but pump within the economy. 3.74 lakh crores rupees is the liquidity they have put up. 3 months moratorium payment for the installment. I mean, those who are paying the installment every month, for them the relief is given. Housing installment, car installment, etc. They can postpone it. RBI has also given that kind of notification. And they have opened 50,000 crores refinancing window through the NABARD, SIDBI, and NHB, Housing Board, for the industrial sector and particularly for MSME sector. What are the opportunities for COVID-19? Wake up call is given to this. Atmanirbhar Bharat is a slogan of Government of India. That's why this COVID-19 situation has given us a slogan or given us what one call as a signal how one can become a self-sufficient. That is what one kind of opportunity we do have. Replacing all foreign brands. Those who are purchasing the foreign commodity, there is a trend in Indian economy that using the foreign brand is having some prestige value. So that kind of attitude of the people, of the customer, or the consumer, or the buyer should get changed. So buyers' preference to the foreign product should get changed. That is what one opportunity this pandemic situation will lead to. Supporting local brand, better we can buy the commodity which we have produced in our own country. Create expansion in size of market. Our market internally, internationally, domestic as well as the world market, one has to uplift, one has to extend. The size of the market from local to national to global, one can increase it. That is what one opportunity we do have. Enhancing new schemes which the government of India as well as the Maharashtra has announced that is to be implemented. Grab an opportunity to create your own image. If we follow this Atmanirbhar Bharat strategy, then we will have some kind of image within the country that this is the product which is produced in so and so region of India. It's India made, made in India product. One should use it, one should buy it. Developing and building network within the society and revoke your own presence. Always look for the expansion of and the growth. whatever the programs, whatever the activity which we are doing, one can add the things within the existing activity. If the producer is producing some tons, increase additional quantum of production. If the farmer is producing some quintals of the cereals, increase the productivity of that kind of farm. So in that way, one can expand and increase not only the production, even the what we call as sales also. Then there are certain kind of independent, create self opportunities in certain circumstances, face the new challenges. This COVID-19 pandemic crisis has given a very important challenge before everyone. This is not only to the politician level challenges, or this is not only to the policymaker challenge. This is not only level to the what we call as the rural urban challenge. This is the new challenge before each and everyone. So from this challenge, from this crisis, one should learn many things. And that's why a technology plays a very important role. A digital platform plays a very important role. A knowledge gap which plays a very important role. And that's why today we are interacting through this kind of what we call as webinar because of only the digital platform. So one can invest, one can increase the skill in this kind of situation. Coming to the last part of this talk, what is the way forward? I mean, we have covered most of the part, what is called as growth position, agriculture situation, allied sector, industrial position, even trade, etc. What is done, what is to be done, how the recovery should be done. But for that, to push up all that activity, what the government should do, or what the society in large should do to increase or to take our economy from recession stage to the recovery stage, from downside stage to the upward stage. There are certain strategies which are there in these two slides. Lay out a clear policy for lockdown and opening up. As I said that lockdown, opening, further lockdown, then opening, this kind of haphazard kind of policy, which will not lead to the recovery at a faster rate. So the clear-cut program is to be jot down for the lockdown problem. Then government may consider introducing universal basic income. So as I said earlier, government is giving money in the hands of the people through the Jan Dhan scheme, but only that is not important. Those who are affected, those who are the migrant labor, those who have lost the jobs, through the DTB, direct transfer to the account. And that's a universal basic income scheme is to be launched. One of the great economists, Arvind Subramaniam, has launched this kind of program long days back, that what is more important is universal basic income scheme is more important for India nowadays. So that used to be implemented by the government. Enhance cash transfer to the daily wage earners. So daily wage earners, they are not having a job in the hand, they are not working. Essential commodities are required for day-to-day consumption. They should buy the fruits, vegetables, cereal, pulses from where they can buy if there is no money in the pocket. So this cash transfer, which is of very much important. In this COVID-19 pandemic situation, government should not think about the fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is not the problem now. One can increase it. Subsequently, we'll think it later on. But now the survival and the saving the lives of the people, which is of very important. That's why the cash transfer for this. Nobody should die because of hunger. Nobody should die because of malnourishment. Why the cash transfer to purchase the essential items are more important. Impetus to be given to the infrastructure, housing, and auto sector. As I said that this is the labor where they have been moved from one place to another place during this pandemic COVID-19 problem. But what is more important, slowly and gradually, if you open the economy through the infrastructure, road infrastructure, housing infrastructure, auto sector, where employment will be created, and economy will have what one call as a recovery wheel, which will start functioning. So the employment generation is more important. GST rate. Earlier, good service tax rates, which the government has announced, and now the GST rates. Government should rethink that a GST rate should be rationalized. The GST, which is very high on certain commodity, and if they are the essential commodity, that should be brought down. So there are many tools which the farmers are purchasing for the agriculture sector, but GST is very high. That is to be rationalized because that will drive the rural economy. So the rationalization of the GST rate is to be done immediately. by the central government. Slab of the individual income tax rates, we know that tax rates 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever it is. But these tax rates are to be rationalized, because what is more important is giving cash in the hand of the people is more important to create the demand than withdrawing money from the pocket of the people. So a tax withdraws the money from the pocket of the people. That will not increase the demand. So to push the demand, giving cash, giving money, increasing the disposable income of the people is more important. So the individual tax rates are to be widened, or that should be changed. State government to be supported in purchase of new fleet of buses, because this transport system, mobility of person from one place to another place, and we know that the crowded kind of positions are not very dangerous nowadays. So the fleet type of buses is to be manufactured, that is to be supplied for the local transport and the needy people. Continue to lift the travel restrictions in the calibrated manner. Travel restrictions are slowly and gradually to be withdrawn. Interest rates are to be brought down. I mean, the central bank, Reserve Bank of India, has made the announcement by reducing the repo rate to the extent of 4.4%. But if this things becomes aggravate, if the COVID-19 pandemic situation becomes more problematic, further reduction in the rate of interest in other areas are also to be brought down. Local ko vocal karo, that is Atmanirbhar Bharat, made in India and made for India. And other relevant way forward strategies are free and concessional transport to return the migrant workers. If the migrant workers want to come back from native place to the workplace, then concession should be given, or transport facility to be provided, that should be provided free of cost. Make arrangement for food and shelter close to the work site and factories, because SOPs of the government of India and the state government of Maharashtra are there. The mobility is to be restricted. So those people who are working in the factories, and those factories which have started and where the workers are there, a hygienic condition of that workers to be taken into account by the owner of a factory. So the shelter is to be created, food is to be supplied in the site of that particular factory. Promote low-cost rental housing and medical insurance. Nowadays, we know that in the urban areas, most of the people are living on a rent basis. Their earning source has been affected. So what is more important is a government should give some kind of concessions, or at least create a low-cost shelter, or if not, then low-cost rental housing scheme is to be launched. Medical expenses of the family must be seen. The expenditure in the medical and hospitals are coming in rupees lakhs to the families of a particular person. So what is more important? The government should make the medical insurance compulsory. It should be given freely to each one, because this is the pandemic situation. Pandemic problem is not because of that man. It is because of the what you could call as global changes. So medical insurance is to be made freely available to the people. Promote small-scale industry project. Those people who want to come forward and to start their own industries, maybe small, micro, or large-scale industries. I mean, wherever these people want to come forward, form them, giving a license, or what we can call as the ease of doing business activities to be promoted by the government very systematically. MG Narega scheme, as I said earlier, that will be strengthened. The budget of that particular scheme is to be increased to the largest extent. If it is 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, I say that 5 times more the budget is to be made under this, because more people will get the income in the hands of that, and that will drive the economy. What we have learned from the 1930-33 Great Depression, similar kind of, or even more than that also, the problem is there. So the demand side is to be taken into account, and for that, MG Narega becomes a better source. A comprehensive social security scheme for the migrant workers may be developed, covering education and health care. If at all worker is ready to move from their native hometown place to the workplace, then his or her family care related to education, related to health expenditure, related to health services to be taken by the either industry or by the government. So these are the strategies which are very important for the government, both state government as well as the central government, in the days to come. And if at all the government implement it, then our economy, which is already in the recession, will start to take off through the recovery stage, and slowly and gradually recovery which will take place. But COVID-19 pandemic crisis, how long that goes up, to that extent, the shape of the recovery which will get matter. Either we will be in a V shape or U shape or W shape, as I said earlier. But lock and unlock process haphazardly, if you start, and then if you close, and then if you start, if that goes in a zigzag manner, then definitely it will take some kind of more time for the recovery point of view. So the clear-cut program, clear-cut strategy, clear-cut process, clear-cut plan is to be jotted down for the lock and unlock. If it is done, then I'm sure that in a days to come, economy will have a recovery stage and our economy will once again come back. So to win this kind of crisis, because this is a global crisis and very serious and severe crisis, to win from this crisis, support of each one is more important. Not only the government, support of each individual is more important. And finally, at the end of this, I will say that make use of masks, make use of hand sanitizers, and make physical distancing. I will not say the social distancing, physical distancing. If you keep it, definitely everyone will remain the same. So either stay home, stay safe. If that's a strategy if you follow, definitely will win this kind of problem. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come over on this webinar. And I am definitely thankful to the organizing committee, management of the Shrimant Babasaheb Deshmukh Mahavidyalaya, and the Department of Economics faculty, and overall college as such, for giving me the opportunity to share my own views. Thank you very much.
Spotlight.
On the behalf of the national webinar, I am also thankful Dr. Mahadev Deshmukh sir, spending with valuable time with us and sharing views, ideas, and various. Deshmukh sir highlighted various sectors of the economy, impact of the COVID of Indian economy, such as agriculture, trade, industry, and all other sectors. I am also thankful Principal Dr. Vijay Londe sir. I am also thankful all participants of this webinar, and I'm also thankful organizing committee of the webinar. And again, thank you all of participate. Thanks.
Link to the